Colin sure is going to explain a little bit from, and we will introduce him more about his academic point of view from sleep. So, Shanita, if you can start sharing. Oh, one thing to mention beforehand, in the PowerPoint slides, we use your child, but we mean the child you care for. So that can be your son or daughter or the child you are a carer of. And then if Shanita has shared her screen, if Mrs. Ramsey then can lead in the school prayer, that would be great. Thank you for being here tonight.
Oh no, I think I'll just stop presenting 1 second because I think I'm sharing just all of you guys. Let's see, I'm going to share my window. I think that's what I need to do. I did that a minute ago, didn't I?
Well, I'll go ahead with the prayer, okay?
There we go.
You got it?
There we are.
Okay,
see
that's
that now?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
thank you. Okay, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Be near us, Father, as we meet today. Inspire our thoughts and light our understanding. Guide us towards your vision for our school and grant that we may wisely lead and ever humbly serve this community of St. Modens entrusted to our care. Amen.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming along to this session. Title, I suppose, quite aptly, How Good Is Your Sleep? So that's probably quite an open question, which some people may have varying views on here. So it's an information evening that we have for parents and carers and any staff as well who are on the call. And presented by myself and Ali Hilda. We are members of the Parent Carer Mental Health and Wellbeing Focus Group here at St. Modens. And we have our guest speaker tonight, Dr. Colin Shore, research assistant with Glasgow University, who is going to present the second, I suppose, or maybe the last third of the presentation and talk specifically about a programme that he is involved in. And finally, Mrs. Shandley has got a quick shout out at the very end, so there'll be a couple of minutes as well, Mr. Shandley, set aside. So we've got we'll wrap up at about 15:15 or just before, so we've just under the hour to get through our presentation this evening, but we are hoping for a bit of audience participation. As with anything, a lot of what we learn is really through ourselves as peers, just sharing some of our own experiences in terms of our own sleep habits, and also how we see these manifesting with our children, young people as well. So really, I suppose the best place to start is looking at some of the takeaways from tonight's session. So in order to understand how to improve sleep, I suppose it would be useful to understand what exactly is sleep, why is it important to us and our young people, what is good sleep hygiene, tips for getting to sleep, and that's perhaps where some of you will have some good examples that work for you. How can we model good sleep practice to our young people, and learning from each other on how to get our young people to better quality sleep. So it's not just the duration of sleep, it's the quality of the sleep. I will caveat everything I say just now by saying I'm not a sleep expert, but I have a strong interest in this subject because I'm absolutely appalling at my own sleep hygiene. So really I'm hoping tonight I'll take away a lot of what I've put into the information here and the research, some of which I get from my own work and other information that I've just managed to pick up because I've got particular interest in it. But anyway, we'll all learn from each other. So you can sleep when you're dead. I suppose that is typifies perhaps the Western attitude towards sleep. It's not important, it's not necessarily valued. Perhaps it's viewed by some as it's time wasted. Why sleep when you can be doing something else? And also that attitude towards people who sleep a lot, that perhaps they're lazy. Why are you sleeping when you could be doing something more productive? When in fact, sleep itself is an extremely productive activity, which we will talk about in a moment or two. So really that's the starting point, and I think it's really, there's been a lot of research in recent years, and I think a lot of, hopefully some movement away from this approach and attitude with regards to sleep. But as parents, as carers, it's really up to us to model good sleep practice to our young people. So we can do that, then we would hope that in turn those within our households will follow suit. And I'm talking to myself here because as somebody who's got a really, really, really bad sort of practice of going to bed too late, not getting good quality sleep, and really, you know, that's not really setting a good example within my household. So if my children are falling asleep in your classrooms, you can blame me. So some sleep misperceptions and some myths. We don't sleep in one continuous block, but we move in and out of different stages of sleep. And we actually briefly wake between one stage to the other, but return very quickly to sleep. So most of the time we won't even realize that we have briefly woken, but we usually go straight back into it. And then there's the difference about feeling tired doesn't always equate to a lack of sleep or poor quality sleep. That can be mood dependent. And the other myth that we have is that people need less sleep as they grow older. That's not the case at all. There are changes to our body clock whereby older people tend to become sleepier in the early evening. They go to bed earlier, they wake up earlier in the morning, but the same amount of sleep is required throughout your adult life. Children, young people are different, and we'll talk about that in a moment about why they're different in terms of their sleep requirements. If you have any questions as we go through this, feel free to pop them into a chat, and Ali Hilda will be keeping an eye on them as well, or just put them in there, and we'll have some opportunities for actually going into some smaller groups to answer some questions that we'll present to you in a short moment. So in terms of sleep, what is sleep? So we have basically, sleep is divided into 4 stages over 2 distinct states. So it's purple actually. N1, that's the lightest stage. That's the bit where we're just getting drowsy and sort of falling into sleep. We've got N2 and then N3. And we've got the N1 state, which is the purple areas are the non-REM, that's the rapid eye movement, as well as a band. So those stages of sleep are split into the N1, state 1, and then state 2 is the rapid eye movement state. So each stage represents increasing depth of sleep. So we move from N1 into N2, and from N2 we move into N3, which is sometimes also referred to as slow wave sleep. This is the bit where it really can be difficult to wake people up from, particularly when you're trying to wake a young person up and they're in their N3 phase of sleep. Sometimes you wonder, how do they sleep through that racket or that noise? Well, that's probably why, because they're in this really, really deep sleep, and it's absolutely essential for young people and children, this stage of sleep. Each sleep cycle lasts between 90 to 110 minutes in adults. The earlier sleep cycles have longer periods of uninterrupted slow wave, and then relatively short periods of REM. And as we go through the night, our periods in REM sleep actually starts to increase and lengthen. So as a rule, the first third of the night is predominantly deep sleep in the N3 stage, and the latter part of the night is spent in the N2 and the REM stage. That's where we talk about people have dreams, and you wake up and you sometimes remember your dream before, early in the morning, or just before you get up for breakfast, you kind of sometimes remember maybe what you were dreaming about, probably because you were in the REM stage of sleep. During the transition between being awake to falling asleep, that's the bit in N1. That's when people sometimes maybe sort of jerk or jump, and you might see that in the classrooms. If somebody's in light stage of sleep and suddenly you see them jerking at the table, or that sensation maybe like you're falling, or there's a presence in the room, that's usually when they're in N1. So you can keep an eye out for that in the classrooms, but I'm hoping it doesn't escalate into N2 and then N3 slow wave sleep at any point during the school day. So let's see, so the N2 stage, that's accounts for about 45 to 50% of our sleep. N3 is slow wave sleep, accounts for 20 to 25% of sleep during the night. That's when your sleep becomes deeper, and REM is 20 to 25% of sleep through the evening. So why is this N3 slow wave sleep so important? Well, it's linked to the restorative processes of sleep. This is where we kind of recuperate from the day that we've had before. It's also when we physically grow, and that explains why children have proportionally more slow wave sleep or N3 sleep than adults. So when we talk about children literally growing overnight, well, they do during this stage of sleep. That's when it's happening. This stage is also vital for memory and for learning, and it plays a crucial role in making us feel energetic during the day. So day ahead, if we are missing out in N3 sleep, it does have a more detrimental impact on us than missing out on other parts of the sleep cycle. So it is vital for growth, for memory, for learning, and most children can sleep anywhere through anything. If they do wake, there's a great deal of biological pressure for them to get back to sleep. So that's the difference between children and adults, because they really are relying on this stage of sleep. So the other question that people often ask is, how much sleep do I actually need? Well, everybody's different. So to a large degree, it can be genetically determined. And there's actually a questionnaire here that you can, there's a link here. We'll put this in the slides afterwards as well. You can see a live link to check whether you are a morning lark or a night owl. The sleep that you need basically equates to the amount of sleep that allows you to feel awake, alert, and refreshed during the day. So if you're feeling sleepy during the day, then you're probably not getting enough sleep during the night. And there's an 8-hour myth. Some people say it's 7 hours that you need, but there's a bit of ambiguity around this figure. And it might come as a surprise. According to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, they say there is no recommended length of sleep, and that there never has been. The current recommendation is actually that sleep is for more than 7 hours. Any sleep should be, we should get at least more than 6 hours and no more than 10 hours. So if we're sleeping for 11, 12 hours a day, that's not good for us. And we're sleeping for less than 6 hours, that's not necessarily good for us as adults either. But there's not really a scientific figure on how many hours we all need. Everybody can be quite individual as far as that's concerned. So the recommendations, I suppose, ideally are between 7 and 10 hours. And I would put my hand up here and say I usually get, if I'm lucky, probably 6. And I do feel it the next day. So but a lot of that is to do with bad habit. So moving on to our next, we've got a question for everybody here. So what time does your child go to bed on school days? Your child, your young person. Is that one of the poll questions?
Yeah, can you see that? The poll questions? No.
Yes, I think people have to go in the right corner at the bottom. There they can click on this triangle, square, circle, and then you can click on the poll, and then you see that it is the question, what time does your child go to bed on school days? And you have the option before 7:30, or between 8:30 and 9:30, or between 9:30 and 10:30, and after. That should be after 10:30. It says after 9:30, but it should be the last option is after 10:30.
Sorry.
No problem. And I have now voted for my child, and I can see indeed that more people have been able to find it.
Ali, I can't see the poll, but you can let me know what the figures are coming up.
Yeah. So at the moment, the most children go to bed between 9:30 and 10:30. And there are 3 votes, and there are 2 votes for 8:30 and 9:30, and there is 1 vote for after 10:30. Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
And I think the next slide is the next question for the next poll. And that is how many hours sleep does your child get? Because going to bed with St. Modens, children come from so far away that some take the bus much earlier than children who live next to the school. So how many hours? Again, you can find it on the same way, and then you can say choose less than 7 hours, between 7 and 8 hours, or between 8 and 9 hours, or more than 10 hours. If you click on the vote, you can see indeed. So the majority is between 8 and 9 hours. There are 3 votes. There are 2 votes between the 7 and 8 hours, and there is 1 on more than 10 hours.
Okay, thanks everybody for participating in the questions. We have some more questions further on in the presentation. So good sleep hygiene, what exactly does that mean? I think some of us have heard that term, sleep hygiene, maybe thought it a bit peculiar. What exactly does that mean? It is about harnessing positive pre-bedtime habits, having both a bedroom environment and daily routines that promote consistent and uninterrupted sleep. So it's not just pre-bed, it's also what you've done earlier in that day that can give you the best chance of having good quality sleep. Why is it important? Obtaining healthy sleep improves our physical and mental health, and there has been significant research to support that. So obtaining healthy sleep is important for obviously both physical and mental health. It improves our productivity and overall quality of life. Everyone from children to older adults can benefit from better sleep, and sleep hygiene can play a part in achieving that goal. Research has demonstrated that forming good habits is a central part to health. Crafting sustainable and beneficial routines makes healthy behaviours feel almost automatic, creating an ongoing process of positive reinforcement. On the flip side, this is the bit where I talk to myself, bad habits can become ingrained even as they cause negative consequences. So I think we will all know how good we feel or otherwise after we've slept either soundly or we haven't had a good night's sleep, and how that can then impact the rest of the day, your mood, your relationships with other people, and just generally your motivation. So some principles about good hygiene. Set your sleep schedule. Do you have a fixed time when you go to bed? And have fixed time when you wake up. And it also recommends that this includes weekends. So I have to say, I don't plan on setting my alarm at 10 to 6 on a Saturday and Sunday, but that's, it sounds like it's perhaps maybe something, I need to consider. I have literally, I'm just going to back to the other slide, previous, there we go. Prioritize your sleep. Don't skimp on it, don't skip it. But we all do that. We've done that for years. It's been a habit that many of us, we've picked up, whether it's been in our teenage days, whether it's been as students, but sleep has not been a priority, and that can be really hard to break those habits. We're not going to change our behaviours overnight, so make gradual adjustments. Don't overdo it with the naps. And I put in there, who even here has got time to nap? But yeah, I suppose napping during the day, if anyone has ever had the chance to do that, it doesn't do us any favors necessarily. for getting good quality sleep at night. I don't know enough about power naps. Some people swear by them, but again, it probably is quite individual how well that works for different people. So top tips: following a nightly routine. Keep your routine consistent. Take 30 minutes to wind down and to reduce anxiety. And that can include listening to spatial awareness music, to white noise, maybe some light stretching, some yoga moves, reading, relaxation techniques, including meditation and mindfulness. Check your sleep environment. Dim those lights, unplug those electronics, use calming scents, have appropriate bedding. Make sure you're either not too hot or too cold. These are recommendations from the Sleep Foundation. And they say really start unplugging your electronics and build this buffer of at least 30 minutes, but 30 to 60 minutes for winding down before bed. Again, I usually collapse into bed. The thought of winding down, it's kind of like it's the last thing. You just wind down the minute, well, for me, the head hits the pillow. Cultivate these healthy habits. Get good daylight exposure. And what I'm saying here, we can apply this equally to our young people as well. Having good access to daylight, to vitamin D during the day, especially sunlight. It's one of the key drivers that helps our sleep cycle, our sleep rhythms, and helps us get better quality sleep. Being physically active, regular exercise can make it easier to sleep at night and also delivers a host of other health benefits. Don't smoke. Nicotine stimulates the bodies in ways that disrupt sleep and also delivers a host of other health issues. Reduce alcohol consumption. Some people might think having alcohol before bedtime is a sure sign that you will sleep soundly. But while it may be easier to fall asleep, having consumed alcohol, the effects wear off, disrupting sleep later in the night. As a result, it's best to moderate alcohol consumption and avoid it later in the evening. Again, I'll just take a note of that myself, a mental note. I recommend drinking dairy or nut-based milk before bed. So we see that glass of milk. And the reason for that is dairy is a good source of an amino acid that's involved in the production of the sleepy hormone melatonin. And nut-based milks are also linked to melatonin production as well. Cut down on caffeine in the evening. It's a stimulant. I think that's one that we all pretty much, most of us will be aware of anyway. It doesn't affect everybody in the same way. I do drink a lot of tea in the evening. It just means I need to go to the bathroom midway through the night, but it doesn't affect my sleep. But for some people, they cannot have any caffeine at all after a certain time in the evening. Don't dine too late. Eating late, especially if it's heavy, spicy type food, can mean that you're still digesting when it's time to go to bed. And in general, any food or snacks before bed should be on the lighter side. Can also cause indigestion and reflux, which has been proven by research. Avoid high GI foods. Eat fiber-filled snacks if you are going to have something at bedtime. But GI foods, glycemic index type foods such as sweet, sugary drinks, they can increase our blood sugar levels, contribute therefore to a bad night's sleep. Increased fiber, however, is linked to improved sleep quality because it helps to break down the sugar, increases sugar absorption. And also if you're going to take any vitamins, then the B vitamins and magnesium, they help aid relaxation, which can help to support falling asleep quickly. And use of electronic devices before bedtime. So another poll question for us here. Is your child active on electronic devices, gaming, social media, etc. during the last 30 minutes? Now remember, this is wind down time. So are they using these during the last 30 minutes before they go to bed? I'll pass back to Ali.
Yeah, so the poll is launched and I see that some people are indeed already replying. Again, if you had lost the votes, so it looks like most have voted now. So it's in that way, looking at my son, then it would definitely be a yes. But at the moment, there are 3 votes for yes, and 2 for sometimes, and 2 for no. So apparently, some children do really that quite well. I must say, my youngest one does it in bed, so it is relaxing, but still on the phone or something. So he is in his bedroom the last half hour before he goes to sleep. But again, knowing that it is better not to do it, but it's hard to create good habits.
Yeah.
So back to you, Sinead.
Yeah, really difficult to try and have a technology-free zone, especially maybe as children become older, maybe less compliant, less obedient, or more devious in terms of sneaking devices or phones in under the covers. But certainly reducing the number of devices in the room. Avoid using in that 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. This is all, as I say, good practice, good advice. Put the devices in a drawer. If they aren't going to take them out of their rooms as you would like and put them in that box somewhere in the kitchen out of their reach, will put them in a drawer? I know a lot of phones you can put on do not disturb. You can reduce the actual dim the lights on the phones. It's really about resisting the urge, and I suppose applies equally to us as adults. The FOMO, fear of missing out. And I see it with my own children. My own son, my daughter's phone is away. She's the obedient one. But yeah, if it pings in the middle of the night, the light wakes them up. They're checking the phone, and I'm thinking, who on earth is messaging you at this time? And it's after midnight, but it does happen. Silence notifications. So basically, turning those off so that you don't get any notifications. I do that on my own phone, so I don't get any notifications between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. But yet I'll sit on my own phone late at night because that's when I'm catching up on Facebook and I'm catching up on different things during the day. And I'll be sending messages to other people on WhatsApp thinking, oh, they'll not pick that up until morning. But probably what I am doing is disturbing their sleep because their light, if their phone is near their bedside, is probably going on and off, as Sinead is sending her nightly WhatsApp messages out to everybody in a very inconsiderate way. You've also got night mode and airplane mode that we can use. Blue light, we talk about blue light, it may decrease the melatonin production. So it is, again, research has shown us that it can have a negative impact. So we have blue light glasses. I don't know if anyone's children or if any of us wear blue light glasses, but it really helps to block out blue light before it reaches our eyes and helps to reduce the negative impact of blue light. Then we have also another question. So does your child struggle to get up in the morning on school days? That might seem like there's an obvious answer to that, but we're curious to find out if there are differences in your answers.
Yeah, so the poll is launched, so you can find it again under the other polls. I don't know, Mrs. Ramsey. I have voted, but I don't see the results this time. Do you see the results?
Yeah, they should be there. I can see them. Do you want me to?
Yes, please, because it just says that I voted and nothing else comes up.
Okay, so we've got no votes for before 8:30. We've got 2 votes between 8:30 and 9:30.
Oh,
no, sorry, the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, you need to scroll down to poll 4.
Yeah, a long day. Okay. Right. Does your child struggle to get up in the morning? So we've got 3 votes for yes, 2 votes for sometimes, and 3 votes for no.
Okay.
I think that's it now. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see it now. So
okay.
Quite mixed. Surprised about that.
Yep, a good mix. And I suppose this is the bit where, in terms of techniques to wake your children up and to then keep them awake, apart from using Joe Wicks, and putting him on, which maybe some people did during lockdown. I tried, it didn't work. But are there any, and I think this is probably a good time if anybody wants to jump in, if they've got any actual techniques aside from Joe Wicks or cold water that they use in the morning to get their children up, to wake them up, and also to keep them awake until such time as they've left the house and they're off to school. Is there anything that anyone would recommend? Aside from cold water and aside from playing live music.
Do you want to go into breakout rooms for 5 minutes, or
Hi, Arby, for time.
Yeah, we can do that.
Time? Yeah, I've set it up for 5 minutes if people are happy. I've just set it up for 2 rooms, and it would just be for 5 minutes. So if you don't want to speak, just come on. You don't have to. But it might be quite good just going to the. So Sinead, and you're in a separate group, okay? So I'll just open it now. Okay.
I think that's us all back.
Yeah, it's always a relief when everyone comes.
So, Sinead, if you start sharing your maybe as group, um, from our group, kind of the main thing was opening the blinds. Another nice suggestion, which I should have known with my oldest one, is to give them a kiss, so that they kind of are getting awake. But the majority used the light, the blinds opening, or switch on a light. Did you have anything else you need?
We actually digressed a little bit. That was we started to talk a little bit about the difference between. Well, it was more just we talked a little bit about some habits that form even over the bank holiday weekend here, and how noticing in classrooms that haven't had those 3 days where you're not kind of on that school routine. You notice the difference then on Tuesday morning. And also we talked about lockdown, some of the changes where some pupils were studying through the night. It was easier for them, and that there is a bit of research about teenagers who seem to peak later on in the evening, or later, going well past what we would say is their typical bedtime, and they seem to be quite alive and alert. And it's really, we're just talking about maybe their biological clocks, or just a different rhythm to older adults. So it's just some observations about some of our teens, and we were commenting that when they're younger, the little ones, they seem to get up earlier. That's not really a problem. We perceive it then as a problem as they get older, and that's probably because they need to be at school, they need to be at places at a certain time, as they have to be somewhere at a set time. But yeah, certainly when they're younger.
It was interesting that you was no. It was interesting that you were saying that about the teenagers, their kind of biological clock. My middle son did research that, and he said that in Finland, indeed, high school starts at 10 o'clock, because that is better for the teenagers not to start as earlier than 10 o'clock. So he was a big advocate for that.
I take it they finish later as well, Alihilda.
I think so. But the whole Finnish or Scandinavian school system in that way works different. But I know that because of that reason, they did not start until 10 o'clock in the morning, so that the teenagers could have their sleep, kind of what they were needing. Mm-hmm. So if that leads to better school results, then it might be something, but over time is developed in other countries too. But coming from the Netherlands, there it starts even earlier than 8:30 in the morning. So I don't see a problem in starting at this time, but my middle son did research these kind of things, and he came with facts and evidence of it. But anyway, that's good to hear. So if you can share your screen again and go to the last slides, and then we go to Colin after that.
Okay. And I think we are, let me see, I'm just going to, where did I leave? Can you all see? Am I on slideshow? Resume slideshow. There we go. No. Yeah. So okay. we talked about techniques to wake your children up, and to keep them awake.
We don't see your PowerPoint at the moment, Sinead.
Oh, do you not? Hang on, let me see. What do you see? Hang on. Can't share the screen. Sorry, an error occurred when screen sharing. I'll just try it again. Okay.
Yes, that seems, yeah.
Yeah, resume slideshow. So is it letting you see now, yeah?
Yeah, it shows now the first slide of Colin.
Yeah. So, it's lots of hints and tips, but I suppose the message is, if we can model good practice in our own households, that hopefully will rub off on our children. But I think being aware that they are on a different sleep rhythm to us, and it may explain some of the reasons why we just can't understand they're not tired, or they're not tired when we expect them to be. So moving on over to Colin just now. Colin, I have got all your slides on here. Is it easier if I just
yeah, I'm more than happy if you're.
I'll just click. You can tell me next slide, and off we go.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so thanks very much for letting me sort of come along and sort of talk about some work we're doing at University of Glasgow. I'll kind of caveat to start with, I'm not a sleep expert, and my PhD and my previous research was on exercise behaviours and their health being and their health outcomes. So my physiological indications around sleep is limited, but the work we're doing on this has sort of helped it. So the project we're doing, obviously working with Mr. Ramsey at St. Modens and a couple of other different schools. And obviously what we'll do for this little presentation is just run through what we're doing, because I know that a lot of the parents already have signed up to be part of our workshops, which is brilliant. And I've actually got a bunch of the young people also signed up as well recently. So those that have got children that have signed up and know about it, this will be a bit of an insight into what your child should sort of put themselves forward to sort of contribute to. So next slide, that'd be great, thanks. So yeah, as Sinead has gone through there, sleep is really complex, and actually it's quite an intricate behaviour that is super important for emotional, physical, and sort of cognitive well-being. As also mentioned earlier as well, sleep ranges do differ. As young kids need loads to obviously develop. As you get older, you do need a lot less. Around about sort of 13 to 18-year-olds tend to be in that sort of 8 to 10 hour bracket. But as it was mentioned earlier, there is a bit of ambiguity around the evidence around that. But anything way below that is shown to actually be quite detrimental to a lot of actual factors. And there's been a lot of evidence worldwide that actually has accounted for cultural differences as well, that a lot of sort of teenagers, 13 to 18-year-olds, are getting way less than 7 hours. And that does have sort of quite negative impacts on cognitive function, emotional well-being, relationships with friends and family and their peers as well. And it also can have a knock-on impact on activity, diet, and a variety of other aspects there. And it has been shown in some cases to sort of risk-taking behaviours as well. So next slide. And yeah, so interactive devices. Now, when we talk about this, we tend to think around about smartphones specifically, but they are massive in terms of their ubiquity. They're all over the place in terms of laptops, iPads, smartphones, as I mentioned. But we've also got to consider is that TVs were a big issue back in the day for those that were around before smartphones and those interactive devices came about. And they have been reported to be a bit of an issue as well. And it is probably not a surprise that people are finding some of the same issues with smartphones. Essentially what it's done is move the TV into the bedroom, into the bed itself. Plus it's also giving you access to gaming, interaction with other people. Now, back in the mid-90s, we were looking around about around 80% of our households, 16% of households in the mid-90s had access to a smartphone. 2007, that was around about 80%, and that is keep on growing there. So just in the last sort of 20 years, the numbers of smartphones and interactive devices has massively increased, and the age that people are now interacting with them is getting lower as well. So when we're looking at sort of 12 to 13-year-olds, nearly 90% are interacting with interactive devices in some capacity. And then when we think about social media sites, again, they've only been around in the last sort of 15, 20 years, but they have absolutely blown up in size. If one does die away, such as MySpace, another one comes in to easily replace it. They might have something slightly better. And so we're looking around about 93% of that sort of teenage market have at least one social media account, and they're engaging with that maybe 3 to 4 hours per day as well. But what we've also got to consider is these interactive devices, as we are now, they've actually had quite a positive benefit. They've allowed us to interact with friends when we can't be with them physically at times, especially through COVID. That was a huge plus for devices like this. And they've just changed the way that we do everything through schooling now and communicating with our friends. And obviously the amount of functions on there, and some of them are positive as well, because you talked earlier about some of the sort of meditation or mindfulness. People use their phones for those as well. So they can't always be seen as these sort of evil devices that are going to ruin everything. Next slide. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, prior to interactive devices, TVs were an issue, and the same evidence is sort of coming up that we are seeing either a delayed onset, so people are just staying up longer, interacting with whatever it is. That will obviously naturally lead to a reduced duration of sleep. So if you have to be up at a set time the next morning, but you are going to bed later, you are reducing that duration. And that obviously does lead on to daytime sleepiness. Now, some of the things that Sinead didn't mention there is that some of the mechanisms around using those devices at nighttime and how they actually impact the sleep. Now, there are some very obvious ones that are very logical. So if you are just doing something else instead of sleeping, you're reducing that time. So that's obviously a very logical process there. We could be increasing that cognitive arousal. So actually, if you're engaging with something that's on like a game, perhaps that's quite evocative for any reason, that closely could make you more excited, so you're not sort of calming yourself down before sleep. There is a lot of stuff around screen brightness as well. Obviously, you mentioned the glasses earlier as well. There's also been some evidence as well that suggests that actually it makes no difference as well. And then there's also emotional arousal as well. So if you're looking at Facebook or anything like that, where you have a personal vested interest in what's happening, that could obviously increase that, and obviously then reduce their capacity to sort of wind down at night time. Now, the issue is with a lot of the research is there's a lot of fallibility with a lot of it. It's either been targeted at small numbers or the measurements haven't been quite correct. So it's really hard work to pinpoint anything that's actually explicitly causing some of these issues. The reality probably is that it's a combination of all of these things. But as I mentioned, there are obviously some positive aspects around about using devices as well. So next slide. So obviously this prompted a lot of some of the senior researchers within our department to go away and actually have a think around about this. And the National Institute for Health Research put out a call back in 2019 that wanted to look specifically at teenagers and interactive devices and sleep. So we thought, brilliant, we've got something that we can put in there. So we put up a bid, and they actually come back and said that actually they don't see the public health importance of this, which was quite shocking because they'd asked for it specifically. We put a bid in that matched everything they wanted, but they were like, no, not quite right. So what we thought, well, actually, this is important work and we want to carry it on. So this is what we're doing now. So next slide. So what we've done is we've scaled it down a little bit to start with, and we're actually going to sort of do a lot more developmental work with young people and parents and staff in schools. So our outcome of the study is to hopefully develop some sort of intervention that's going to be peer-led, and I'll lead into why that's why we're using that approach in a second. That's going to make use of some material that's out there already through the Sound Sleep charity material and some other research that's been done here in Glasgow called Sleepy Teens. And then we also want to look around the program theory, and that's just trying to understand why certain things might impact on other aspects and give us an idea on what the reasons are behind some of the actions that might be happening. So what we're planning to do is to do some workshops with young people, and there's a couple there that I've listed. I'll go through them really quickly in a second as well. And then we're going to work with our parents, yourselves, and stakeholders around what the young people have produced and see if it sort of tallies with what you're thinking around it as well. So next slide. So our first workshop is probably our most complicated workshop and hopefully our most exciting workshop as well, actually. So what we're trying to do is a causal loop diagram. And this is quite unique in itself that no one's really done it with the age group that we're looking at online before, which is going to be quite a challenge. But the idea is to look at connections between certain aspects. So something that Sinead mentioned earlier was the fear of missing out. So what we might see as an example is that if a young person was not able to chat to their friends for whatever reason in different classes, that day. They might have heard something happened at school. There's a big gossip thing. So they're on their phone late at night trying to catch up on what has happened. So then they're on their phone all night. So that the next day they're clued up, ready to actually go into school and engage with that. If they didn't have that, they might feel like they've missed out. So then if you increase that engagement time with the phone, you're then reducing that fear of missing out, but then that's actually increasing the sleepiness the next day. And that can obviously go the other way around as well. So if you reduce that phone time, you might increase that fear of missing out, but then you actually are decreasing the amount of sleepiness the next day. So it's trying to work out where one change might influence another change there. So we're going to work with the young children to understand what actually they want to talk about around that, and what they think might be capable of changing, because they're the ones that might be engaging with their phone. So if you suddenly say to them, can you not do this? And they're like, no, I'm definitely still going to be doing that. It's a wasted intervention trying to get them to do something that they know that they're definitely not going to do to start with. So our next workshop that we're going to look is something about the assist model. You might have heard about this before. It was predominantly, or initially, was used as a stop smoking initiative in sort of 12 to 13-year-olds, which is the age group that we're looking at. And the idea was to train up young people to have incidental conversations with their friends. So those people who went away, they did a 2-day training course around the benefits of not smoking. And then that would just be interjected over a 10-week period to their friends. So if someone said, oh, I'm thinking about starting smoking, they might say, oh, do you know what? Actually, that's a bad idea because of these things here. And it's found to be a really cost-effective way of stopping people starting smoking, because that's the age group that a lot of people start smoking at. And it's quite cheap, and it's really easy to sort of implement into schools as well. And it involves little engagement from teachers as well. So obviously it's not something that's run directly from the schools as well. So we're going to try and change that to around about incidental conversations around about using your devices at night time, to see if we can modify that process as well. Next slide. So the third workshop is going to be looking at some material that's out there already. So the Sound Sleep Programme, which is the Scottish charity that put out a lot of stuff with schools. They do a lot of sleep diaries, a lot of training that schools can do to obviously essentially do what you've done here, is obviously just talk about different aspects of sleep and what might be useful, what might not be useful. And what they also have is a sleep mentor program, which is very similar to the assist model. So we're going to try and modify that as well. Obviously work with the young people, see what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and see what might need to change. Another aspect, there's another bit of research that's been happened here at Glasgow, which was the Sleepy Teens program. So they did bespoke data collection within schools. So they would send out sleep diaries to the schools and find out when people were going to sleep, what was stopping them going to sleep, what helped them go to sleep, and actually what the young people considered to be good sleep hygiene for them. And then they were able to then look at the data and then feed back to the school specifically and say, the majority of your pupils in this particular age group were finding that this was a particular problem. And then you could target those discussions around that. So we're going to use that sort of approach and again, talk with the young people to work out which aspects of that they like, which they don't like, and see if we can modify that and sort of bring it all together. And then our last workshop with the young people is to kind of put together a draft logic model. Essentially what that is, it's a flow chart, and that's where we're going to be looking at where we think from a theoretical perspective certain things will flow into each other, and actually if it makes sense to the young people, actually if they did this, it's going to naturally lead on to a positive change around their device use at night time. Next slide. And then last of all, we're going to package all that together and then present to adults and staff what the young people have come up with, and then see if they've got any additions they want to add in there, something that if the young people have suggested that they could actually do for their bedtime routine, but actually for parents, there's something very obvious that's not going to work for parents or the household. So actually that's where we need to have a think around about it and obviously try and bring those ideas together. And then that's it, those slides there. So we can stay on that slide there. So essentially what we're looking to do is we're going to obviously work with this school here, and we're going to work with some other schools as well. and obviously bring all the data together eventually. At the moment, myself and Mr. Ramsey are working on trying to get the date set up for the first bunch of workshops. So we're going to run the 4 children's workshops first, and then once we've got that, we're then going to come along with the teachers and the adult workshops. Now, initially, we had hoped to get the adults, parents and carers, and the staff together at the same time, but because we have to run the workshops for staff in their CPD hours, that might not work very well with parents who are working normal 9 to 5, 9 to 6 shifts. So we're going to work again with the people that have signed up on the best availability. So either whether it's a nighttime workshop like this, or whether we can fit it in during the day, depending on your work schedules. For those that have signed up already, thanks very much. And obviously, I've had emailed some of you already to obviously let you know that there was a delay in those workshops happening. But yeah, hopefully in the next month or so, we should start to run these workshops with young people, and then we'll obviously feed them back to the schools that we're working with, so they can get an idea of what we've created, and then we'll go from there. Next slide, if that's okay, Sinead, thanks. Yeah, so these are some of the collaborators, and then the top left is Professor Sharon Simpson, who's leading all this work, and a lot of the others who are sort of contributing towards it. And then the next slide is just a thank you for letting me talk to you and explain, for those who know their child have signed up, what they're putting themselves up for, and obviously we're really grateful for them contributing to the work that we're going to be working with them.
Thank you, Colin, for that. That is good. I see that Anthony had a question in the chat, which I have mixed feelings about. In a way, from a parent point of view, I would say yes. I have been a teacher in a high school as well, and I know it was very hard for kind of safeguarding principles to say that they had to hand in. So I was in high school teaching 20 years ago, and when I saw a mobile phone, they knew that I would collect it. But from law perspective, it was kind of not easy to keep them for the full day. I don't know if their laws in Scotland are different, but that was in the Netherlands where I was teaching in a high school. So I don't know if Mrs. Ramsey or Mrs. Shantley or Mrs. Quinn want to say anything about this from a school point of view.
I suppose all I would say is that we try to ask the young people to self-regulate. We do have, being ready for every lesson, being respectful and being responsible, and we try to address things that way. So there is a clear view that pupils put their phones away at the beginning of the lesson, and only have them out at intervals and lunchtimes, and we do reinforce that message. Feasibly, with 1,022 kids in the school at the moment, we couldn't and we wouldn't be able to take responsibility for taking every phone in every day, so we would just seek parental support. But if a child is using a phone when it's been explicitly asked not to, the staff member can then take the phone and hand it into the office to be collected later. So I suppose we would just go by our 3 expectations of being ready to learn, being respectful, and and being responsible for using that device. So we would try to deal with anything that happens that way.
Yeah, thank you. And then I think Ms. Shantley, Shanita, I don't know if you stopped the slideshow, but if you can show the slide of Mrs. Shantley, then she can explain what that means.
Are you still able to see, or hang on?
Yeah.
I'm getting a small view of the slide. The only thing she doesn't see, but it doesn't matter. I can talk to it. I suppose just while you're sorting that, can I just say thank you? As a parent, that was really interesting, and even as an adult with probably poor sleep hygiene as well, it was interesting to hear some of the reminders and to consider things. So I need to thank Sinead and Ali for organising this. And I suppose the thing about this group is it's a parent-run group, and it's in response to what parents have asked. So please, if you do find it useful, can you spread the word, because we would really like to reach out and get more of our families involved. Also, we've had a great relationship with Shine over the years, and this piece of work with Colin has now come from that connection again. So we're really grateful to Colin for coming on board with St. Modens, and we really do hope that we can have a productive project around sleep that we can help to train and really have really make a difference for some young people, and also really help our staff to have a better understanding, and our parents. So we're really excited to go forward and work on this project. So thank you so much to you and to Mrs. Ramsey for organising it all. I know we haven't got a huge number of parents left, but I just wanted to mention we hope to run, or we are running, if we can get enough parents, we are running the Positive Parenting Programme. It's called Triple P. It's for parents of teenagers. We have offered it before, but we've always had to offer it through Stirling Council Social Work or through Stirling Council Family Support, because they've been the trained ones, but we've now got trained staff in school, so we're in a much better position to be able to offer a bespoke programme for our St. Modens community and our St. Modens family. We will put the information out. We will put the information out to all families, but I thought I would just sneak a wee preview in this group, since you all came out logged on of an evening to hear about sleep. I thought I would give you the first information about it. So after October, we hope to run this group. It will be it's 4 workshops that are 2 hours each, and then after that there's coaching, phone calls and support after that, and it's around parenting a teen. And many of us who are at the beginning of that journey or the end of that journey know that parenting teens cannot always be easy, so any support is of use. So I will be sending more information out to all of our families about that, but I'm giving you just a wee sneak preview. So thank you, Sinead.
Thank you, Mrs. Shandley. That's been really helpful.
Useful
information. Thank you.
So there is one more question. Or Sinead, you're going to stop now sharing, then you can see the questions as well. This is about caffeine and then energy drinks. Did you find anything specific about that, Sinead? With the energy drinks, if that is the same as caffeine?
Yes, what I did find was that, again, for young people, avoiding these high caffeine energy drinks, that was, I know that they're quite popular. Am I still sharing my screen, actually, or have I come out of it?
No, you're still sharing your screen.
Still sharing it. I'll try and, let's see if we can come out of that. Stop sharing, stop presenting. There we go.
Yeah.
See you all now. All I could see was the screen with my slide on it. Same principle. If it's got high caffeine in it, it's going to be detrimental to the sleep for your young person. And I suppose it's this. They've got high sugar content as well. So if we remember that high GI also impacts as well on the quality of sleep. So it's a double whammy, I think, with those energy drinks as well. So not necessarily going to promote good quality sleep for sure. It will help them stay awake if they're doing their studies for exams, which is probably why maybe many of us maybe had them when we were studying back in the day. But they're very much part of a lifestyle, aren't they, for a lot of our teens drinking these drinks. So yeah.
Can I just come in, Sinead, because I think Anthony asked, obviously as a home economics teacher, we're teaching very clearly about the importance of reducing fizzy drinks and energy drinks. And within class, we're encouraging young people only to have water, so they can have their water bottles out. So certainly, and even within lunchtime, we're encouraging them not to have that. So certainly, as a whole school approach to discouraging these, and particularly within the class situation and within breaks as well. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm just aware of time, Sinead. Okay, so
that is grand. Any other questions in the chat?
Not so far.
Workshop for teens. We could bring them along with energy drinks.
Please. Yes, please. Yes.
That's great. So if there are no other questions, then thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we did discuss that the slides would be shared. We don't know yet if it will be on the website or if that will be emailed. I know on the Facebook group someone was asking as well if they could see the recording. I don't know, it is recorded, but I don't know if there is a policy of the school to kind of share that on the website.
Yeah, the plan is we record that. I'm just going to end it, and we will put the link on and also put it into the parents' newsletter as well. And we can put that onto YouTube, Aisling?
What we'll probably do, what we usually do is we put it onto the private St. Moden's YouTube channel, so it doesn't just go out publicly, and then we would put it out through the parental newsletter, so we know it's going to families within the school, rather than just putting it on the website for anybody. We would put it into that. That's normally what we would do.
That's great. I'll feed that back. There was a question. There was a couple of parents couldn't make it this evening because they were working, so they were interested in attending. So keen to see if they could listen to your recording. So thank you. Thanks everybody for your participation. Thank you, Colin, for all the information about the programme, and Mrs. Shandley about the positive parenting programme as well. So hopefully there'll be more information coming out in due course on that. So we got a first preview tonight, so appreciate that, everyone. And thanks for your time on this dark Tuesday evening. Okay, take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.